Hey, what's going on, guys? What's happening? YouTube, good morning, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. Got my Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee here, and I figure you guys can join me for my morning coffee. We cover another one of these millennial articles. I know you guys love these millennial articles. We tend to cover them whenever they come out. Before we get into the article, it's kind of crazy. Yesterday, I heard that the NFL is getting in place a virtual draft. And it kind of got me thinking about all the things that this virus is ruining for people. I got a buddy who was supposed to be getting married down in Florida May 1st. When this whole thing kind of first kicked off, they were playing it by ear. I think it's pretty clear now that isn't going to happen. So, I mean, it threw off my buddy's wedding. And then when I heard about the draft getting canceled yesterday, you got kids who've been playing football their whole lives, working hard through high school and college, training. And this is, their moment to, go to the draft and walk up on stage and put on their team's hat. And that's pretty much been taken away from them. Now they're going to be sitting in their living room watching it on TV. It's still cool. They're going to be multimillionaires. Don't feel that bad for them. But, people have worked really hard and this took that away from them. So many other things. Like, I can't tell you how many people I've either heard from anecdotally or even know personally who just started a business. They just opened a bar. They just opened a fitness studio. And, it's tough to get a business off the ground. Most businesses fail. And here, right after opening up, right after spending all that money on a remodel, on marketing, on everything else, everything just comes to a grinding halt. And one thing that's especially frustrating and really pisses me off, Chicago's mayor, Lori Lightfoot, about a week ago said, I forget her exact quote, but she was basically telling people, barbershops are shut down. I mean, they've been shut down, but barbershops are shut down, salons are shut down, massage studios are shut down. And she said, you don't need to get your weave fixed. You don't need to get your roots done. And then yesterday she goes on, which is so tone deaf. I don't know why she's posting on social media. She posts pictures like online or in the media, social media, something, with her and her hairstylist. And she wound up going and getting a haircut while telling everybody else that they shouldn't get haircuts. And when kind of called out for the hypocrisy, she said, well, I take my appearance and my personal hygiene really seriously. And, I'm important and I have to appear on national TV for, interviews and stuff. So I need to look good. And it's just another incident of, one set of rules for you plebs, for you normies, for you non-important people out there, and another for the quote-unquote elite class or politicians. So, fuck Mayor Lori Lightfoot. This is why people don't take this seriously, because there's one set of rules for important people and another set of rules for the rest of us. And, if I were somebody who just opened up a barbershop and, I've essentially been put out of business, yet Lori Lightfoot is running around getting haircuts, that would piss me the fuck off. And it's a slap in the face to every salon that's been shut down, every barbershop that's been shut down. Actually, my girlfriend was just showing me yesterday, there's this really kind of nice, spa, whatever, here in Chicago. And I found them years ago. I used to always buy my mom and my sister, I never know what to buy. I'm a horrible gift buyer. So I'd always buy them, $100 gift card to this spa, and they could go get a massage, get a facial, get their nails done, whatever they wanted. And I always buy them for my girlfriend as well. So we're on their email list. And they sent out an email the other day. I happened to miss it. My girlfriend showed it to me. And for the first week or two, first couple weeks, they started making like wine, like Corona. Oh, I can't say that word. Virus themed wine glasses. Like, I'm so sick of the kids at home. Have a glass of wine, or stuff like that. To try to continue bringing in some money to pay the rent, as well as kind of keep the employees paid. And they sent out another email the other day and basically said if this extends another week or two, which it's going to, they're going to wind up having to go out of business. So that's just really kind of sad. And this whole thing is just ruining a lot of things for a lot of people. Let's kind of hop into the article. So the article is titled "Millennials Burdened with Debt Are Now Facing an Economic Crisis." We did an article a couple weeks ago. I probably won't remember to drop a link below or above, but if I do, I will. It was something to the effect of millennials have like 4 to 6 times less net worth, property, investments than baby boomers did at the similar age. And even Generation X, which was the generation right before Millennials, even they had like more than twice, the assets, whether that be owning a home, investments, etc. And the article kind of talked about how millennials span a 20-year age group. So millennials are anywhere between 25 and 35, obviously different stages of their lives. But a lot of millennials graduated into the Great Recession or following the Great Recession. And there's, plenty of studies that show, if you're working for somebody else, if you have a career, that your income is heavily determined by your starting salary, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because anytime you go apply for a job, they ask what your previous salary was. If you were making 30 grand, do you think somebody's going to give you 80 grand, even if you're worth 80 grand? Probably not, right? Because there's not a need to jump that high. If you were making 30 and we give you 50, we think that you should be thrilled about that. So if somebody, a lot of millennials kind of, I don't even want to say squandered because it wasn't their fault, but a lot of millennials kind of squandered their 20s because Gen Xers and baby boomers were taking jobs beneath them, jobs that would have normally been entry level jobs because the economy was so bad. So many millennials were not working in their industries, were working retail. And even though the past 10 years was kind of a boom cycle in terms of housing prices going up, stock market shooting up, if you didn't have any assets because you didn't make any money through your 20s and you have all this student loan debt, well, you weren't able to take advantage of this rush of the past 10 years. And even though I know a lot of millennials are still struggling, a lot of people are finally kind of starting to find their footing, either finally starting to start businesses and having some success, finally starting to find their way in their careers. And right as they kind of start to get their footing, now the coronavirus comes and kicks them in the nuts again. So millennials have been kicked in the nuts twice. Here's a Yahoo story about it. Figure we give it a quick read. Just kind of highlights a couple different millennials and kind of the trouble they're facing right now. Millennials burdened with debt are now facing an economic crisis. This is Evan Schrade and Caitlin Garner, both or Evan's 26, Caitlin's 23. They lost their jobs and have just over $1,000 between them with apartment rent coming up soon. They live in Kansas City. The article starts off, the last time a serious economic shutdown hit in 2008, Evan Schwade was in high school and the crisis seemed like a news event that happened to other people. This time, as the blank has brought the economy to its knees, it has become a personal affair. When non-essential businesses were closed last month in Kansas City, Missouri, where he lives, Shade, 26, lost his job at a carpet store and almost all the shifts in his second job at a coffee shop. His girlfriend, Caitlin Gardner, 23, was laid off from a different coffee shop. The money they have in their bank accounts, a little more than $1,000, is enough to cover only this week's $800 rent check. Forget about the $300 student loan payment or the health insurance he was hoping to finally sign up for. The couple have spent their time at home applying for unemployment and fruitlessly looking for new work. That makes more sense in New York. I don't think you want to go to New York right now. I know so many people my age who are going through the exact same thing, Gardner said. The youngest American adults are facing what is, for most of them, the first serious economic crisis of their working lives. By most measures, they are woefully unprepared. Well, the past few years were largely good ones for the American economy. That did not help to set millennials up with a solid financial foundation. Overloaded with credit card and student loan debt and underrepresented in the housing and stock markets, that's kind of what we talked about in that other article, they entered this uncertain period with significant obligations and few resources. Their position looks doubly precarious when measured against older generations today and relative to those generations when they were the same age, from 23 to 35 years old. Going into the financial crisis of 2008, Generation X was roughly the same age as millennials today, but had on average twice the total assets that millennials now have when we all have twice the total assets that millennials have now when all bank accounts, stocks, and loans are added together, according to an analysis done for the New York Times by economists at the St. Louis Federal Reserve. Now members of Generation X, who are 40 to 55, are in a strong position relative to millennials, even after being battered by the 2008 crisis. They have about 4 times the assets and more than twice as much in savings as today's youngest American adults. Those with college degrees, a minority of the youngest adults, are doing better on average than previous generations when they were the same age, but everyone else is doing significantly worse, according to a Pew Research Center analysis last year. Even going into the situation, young adults were in a very precarious situation, said Reed Kramer, who led the Millennials Initiative at New America, a left-of-center think tank. A sudden shock is going to have a really big impact on this generation. The turmoil caused by the virus has already brought out other generational divisions. College students partying on Florida beaches have earned the ire of older Americans who face graver health risks when youthful gatherings spread the virus. But while young adults may face fewer health problems, they are more vulnerable to the financial costs of the downturn. Millennials are much more likely to be involved in part time work in the gig economy, according to government reports, and these have been hard hit. Such work generally provides few benefits to cushion a blow of hard times. The sudden disappearance of paychecks combined with an array of monthly debt payments and declines in any investments is forcing some millennials to take desperate measures. Social media has been filled with discussions about how to best take money out of the 401k retirements to pay for rent. Dan Gomez, 22, who lives with his parents near Boston, has been selling his video game consoles on eBay to make his upcoming car payment after losing his job at an AT&T store. I've just been staying at home and playing video games, so I'm kind of upset I have to do this, but I have no choice, he said. Andrew Lawson, 29, was making $500 to $600 a week delivering food for DoorDash on Hawaii's Big Island. After the state shutdown of non-essential businesses, most restaurants closed. In 3 days of work in 1 week, Lawson made less than $60, which wasn't enough to cover the gas to get to Kona, the city with the work. Nowadays, I might get a $5 order from McDonald's after 3 hours of waiting, he said. Lawson has a 2-year-old and a pregnant wife who does not work. They were down to eating plain noodles until he visited a food bank and got a big bag of potatoes and some carrots. He has set up accounts on all social networks to broadcast his need for work, any work. Give me something I could feed my family with, he said. I don't care what it is. The inequality among millennials is even more evident when race is taken into account. Young black families at all educational levels have fallen further behind their white peers over the past 2 decades in measures like household wealth and home ownership, according to research from New America. Over time, it is becoming more difficult for young families to accumulate wealth, said William R. Emmons, the lead economist at the St. Louis Federal Reserve's Center for Household Financial Stability. We thought maybe they'd catch up, but the current situation doesn't give me much reason to believe that's going to happen. Their disadvantages are already shaping the long-term prospects of young Americans. They are much less likely to be married, have children, or own a house than Americans of a similar age in a past decade. Gardner said she and Shade eventually wanted to have a family and a house, but she said, we're both going to be in debt for a while, and having kids is just not feasible. While there's a chance the downturn will be short, economists are assuming the turmoil that has already happened will have long-term consequences for young households. The 2008 crisis made young Americans then more reluctant to invest in the stock market. Millennials today have, on average, only a third of the stock market holdings of Generation X did before the 2008 crisis, according to the data from the St. Louis Federal Reserve. That means that young households have not enjoyed the market gains that came over the past decade. Today, the average number of Generation X has 10 times more wealth from the stock market than millennials. Jack Ackenbrook, 25, who until last month made a living playing drums in a band in Nashville, Tennessee, began putting money into an investment account with startup Acorns last year and had gotten it up to $2,000 by February. The value of the account plunged by almost half in recent weeks, making him question his decision to put it there in the first place. I'm thinking, what if I just kept $30 a week? I'd still have that money. I could use it now, Ackenbrook said, who's been trying to make some money playing concerts online. J.C. Cumberledge, 23, of Amherst, Ohio, has no retirement accounts and spent her last $80 in savings last month to pay her monthly car payment shortly after the gastropub where she worked closed in mid-March. Cumberland's parents have also lost their jobs in the past weeks, her father at a Ford factory, her mother driving a van for disabled children. That has made her aware how much better prepared they were for this, she said. With a house they own and no rent payments to fall behind on. To cover utility bills for her mobile home, Cumberland borrowed $200 from a friend. She has since made some money selling pictures of her feet to people with fetishes who found her online after she put up a joking post on Twitter. And we did an article a couple weeks ago about how webcam girls are actually doing pretty well in this. Eventually, everyone's going to be broke and people aren't going to be simping on webcam girls. But for now, people are bored and depressed, and maybe seeing some feet makes people feel better. You compare it to older generations, they worked up and saved money, Cumberledge said. It feels like I'm never going to have a stable job that has benefits and health insurance. So I only got a couple minutes here. Let's read some reactions. Why does a person incur student loan debt but end up working in a carpet store and a coffee shop? What did the loan pay for? And we've kind of talked about this before. I think if I think if Gen Zers and younger generations go to college, it's kind of foolish if they at least don't know the career prospects and try to keep costs down. For millennials, like when I was in high school, it was pretty much pounded into your head that the only way to have a good, stable life was to go to college. It doesn't matter what you go for. go for basket weaving, leisure studies, women's studies, but you got to go for something. And I think a lot of people are kind of smartening up and realizing that college degrees don't necessarily have an ROI for probably the vast majority of people. I'm an older millennial, 34M, and lived through the 2008 financial crisis. When I was 22, I was 22 when it started, and for over 2.5 years, I couldn't find any stable employment. Since 16, I've always done labor or jobs nobody else my age wanted. I'm about to lose my job because my steel mill is closing down, so I'm going to have to start over again. But the difference between now and 2008 is now my debts are paid. I own everything I have. I prepared for something like this, and I have more experience under my belt, plus a reputation that can take me places if need be. It took me 12 years for me to do that, but it's possible. Just keep knocking on doors. And I think that's a great message. We always, it's kind of why we kind of preach, financial independence, or, having an emergency fund and building up your skills and having side hustles and multiple streams of income, and, kind of living frugally. I just made a video the other day about how I kind of buckled down, was able to cut, $1,100 out of my yearly expenses in about 30 minutes, cable bill, canceling some SAS services, etc. Let's see, what else do we got? Lesson has a 2-year-old and a pregnant wife who does not work. Why are you starting a family when you only have a job delivering food and no job at all? Move back in with your family unit until you figure something out. My generation is blind to the prosperity around us. I'm sitting in a small coffee shop near, not sure where that is, trying to think of, okay, that's a long one. I hate reading these long ones. I'm 30 and a millennial. I come from a middle-class family. I served in the Navy for 5 years and used a GI Bill for my undergrad and grad school for MBA. I earn 6 figures now, and thankfully I'm still employed, but I have an emergency fund that would last me more than a year. It's all about choices we make, not the age or generation. I'm kind of torn on that. Some people just never had a chance and are in a bad situation. And not to say they can't, kind of fix their situation or pull themselves up, but some people have it harder than others. But for people who have new iPhones, cable television, a $600, car lease, I definitely do think that comes down to choices and some smarter choices. Could have made people a lot more stable right now. Let's see, I'm 35 and my wife is 39. No kids, no debt. House is almost paid off. Welcome to the club. No time to have a pity party. Remember, health is your greatest wealth. It will take time, but it will turn around. Basically worked customer-facing jobs. $800 a week rent, and they work in a coffee shop. That is kind of crazy. 8, 16, 24. That's $3,200 a month. I'm guessing they meant $800 rent is due this week for the month. I can't imagine these guys work in coffee shops and have a $3,200 a month rent, especially in Kansas City. So let's see. What do you think it's going to be like for the millions of people over 50 who are never going to be able to get a job again if the economy collapses? These two should have never gone to college. Trade schools would have been money better spent. Why are they overloaded with credit card debt? Okay, so a lot of people are kind of knocking them. Anyhow, I got to run, so let's wrap this one up. But if you guys enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button down below, and we'll catch you guys on the next video. Later on, guys.